يا كريم يا الله.
بسم الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيهنا عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب، يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيهنا عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول، يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجية عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيهنا عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيه عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيه عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيه الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها القاضي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجينا عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى والرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله يا خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيه عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد يا أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وصي الحسني والخلف الحجة أيها القائم والمنتظر المهدي ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله اسألوا حوائج الله سبحانه. يا سعادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم من الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالمين من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين. لشفاء المرضى وقضاء الحوائج والسيد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. 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 يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله. وإلى أمواتنا جميعا ومن مات على الإيمان. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلاة.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. His Haji. I'd like to invite Dr. Farid to the member, please. Dr. Farid, Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. Abul Qasim Mustafa Muhammad wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Inshallah, of course, tonight is the actual Milad al-Nabi and Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and Sayyida Kulthum, but our program arrangement has been for, inshallah, Thursday celebration. So tonight we will continue with our discussions from last week about the types of nafs and the ruh, and all the discussion that we had last week will continue tonight. And we will celebrate the birthdays of Rasulullah and his son Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and his daughter Kulthum, inshallah, Thursday, if Allah radi. So inshallah, you remember that we talked about that in Quran. There are other definitions of nafs, and there are other people who have classified nafs in different ways, but Quran mentioned them in 4 ways. And we talked about nafs al-lawwama from Surah Qiyamah, and then we talked about nafs al-mulhama from Surah al-Shams, and we talk about nafs al-ammara from Surah Yusuf, and we talk about nafs al-mutma'inna, Surah al-Fajr. And in 4 type of nafs, they function differently. And nafs of ammara is the one that pushes us toward the animalistic behavior, which makes that our basic desires and temptations to dictate and dominate our daily lives. So we will only pay attention to those basic needs and the temptations that we have, and all the other values of our being human will be pushed aside by nafsul ammara. And nafsul ammara is the nafs that is used by shaitan. Shaitan counts on magnifying the power of nafs al-ammara in every single one of us. That is his tool. That is the only way he can get to us. If we shut that down, it's like closing gates that opens to shaitan for good. And if we keep it open, he keeps knocking and coming in. So shaitan entrance to our soul is through this nafs al-ammar. And Allah has equipped us with another nafs called nafs al-lawwama, which can directly receive messages about what is taqwa and what is fujur. وَالنَّفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. This nafs and everything the nafs acquires is the one that we send inspiration, ilham. Ilham means inspiration. We inspire these nafs directly. Don't need any intermediate. Directly will let you know what is good and what is evil, what is in taqwa way and what is in fajr way. And nobody can deny that. Everybody has that capability. They don't listen to it, but they recognize stealing is bad, hurting others is bad. Asking someone to hurt somebody else is also bad, even though you don't hurt directly. All of that is very well known. Nobody needs a teacher from outside to come and teach us. Why? Because we have this inside teacher. We have this inside. Incidentally, this becomes our insight. We have this insight about what is taqwa and what is fujur. And we can choose. So, Nafs al-Ammara doesn't give us a choice. Nafs al-Ammara says, Shahwa is good. Taking more than you need is good. Hurting others for your own benefit is good. Being selfish is good. Going after somebody else's wealth without asking permission is good. Going after all the temptations, caving to all our temptations, all of that is the function. Nafs al-Ammara will never lead us to anything good. And Nafs al-Ammara is the one that paves the way to hellfire, paves the way for azab. And we have this few years in dunya to choose, is he going to be our leader, or we are going to enchain him, as Amir al-Mu'mineen says we have to do, and Rasulullah said you can enchain it, and use that nafs al-mulhama as a warning, as an alert system, as a warning system, that during the day, how many actions we do that something is not right about this. Something inside you says, you just did, or you just said, or you just taught something wrong and it's not fair. That is nafs al-mulhama talking to you. Listen to it and pedal back. And if something has been done wrongly, go do your best to make it right. If you hurt somebody, apologize. If you took somebody that doesn't belong to you, return it. If. As long as you listen to nafs al-mulhama, you can pacify, and hopefully after practicing day in, day out, you can control nafs al-ammar. Because nafs al-ammara in Quran says, nafs al-ammara to bisu. This nafs will always take us to hell. There is no other way. You know, the wife of Aziz al-Misr, when Yusuf incident happened, eventually she said, Yusuf is innocent. And my nafs al-ammara made me do what I did. So even if that woman can recognize that I can separate myself from nafs al-ammara, I can listen to my nafs al-lawwama and confess that Yusuf is innocent and I'm the guilty one, and hope for maghfirah. Because after that in Quran, when she says, Ma ubarriyu nafsi inna nafs al-ammarat bisu, she immediately says, Illa man rahima rabbi, inna rabbi ghafurun rahim. So as soon as she relieves herself from listening to nafs al-ammara, where does she go? She seeks shelter to rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for ghufran, for forgiveness. And if she can do that, we can do the same. Nafs al-Ammara is going to take our hand and lead us to hellfire. Now, what do I just said? What does it mean? Are we going to go to hellfire right after we die? Or there's a waiting period? Yes. Quran talks about that waiting period and labels that as barzakh, alam al-barzakh. The word barzakh itself means the distance between two finite points. Finite points means two known points. 2 points that are real, and 2 points, let's say that the distance between here and New York, there are 2 known points, and it is 2 cities, and it is real, and people can measure how long, how far New York from Los Angeles. That is 2 finite points. Barzakh is 2 finite points between the end of dunya, individual people, the end of every dunya for each individual, which is called ajal, the end of dunya until the beginning of qiyamah. Now remember, qiyamah day is 50,000 years of our earth years. So that by itself is another alam. That by itself is another. We're going to try to talk about that too. But as soon as they lower us into the grave, dunya is finished and barzakh starts. And barzakh, as I told you last time, in barzakh, we live a life that can feel joy and azab. In barzakhi life, we will have the sensations of feeling severe pain and sadness or ultimate happiness and joy, just the way we are here in dunya. Same. However, sharper and more batini instead of zahiri. In dunya, you can taste sweet or you can taste better. In barzakh, you can do the same. In dunya, you feel a little pain or a lot of pain. In barzakh, you feel the same. The only difference is that one is more magnified. That one, because here you have the, let's say that you hurt somebody or you did something wrong. Here you have the ability to lie to yourself. Here you have the ability to ignore what you just did. Here you have to put yourself in a state of mind, no. What I did is not that bad. Lie to yourself. But in barzakh, you don't have that ability. So you cannot cover it up. When you cannot cover it up, it comes out in the haqiqi form. Your own a'mal becomes the flame of the azab that we receive. And make no mistake about it, Quran talks about all these different kind of azab. For example, in Surah Al-Mu'min, when Quran talks about what happens to Fir'aun and Al Fir'aun, it talks about 2 different azab, one in barzakh and one after the day of judgment. When Quran says, وَحَاقَ بِآلِ فِرْعَوْنَ سُوءُ الْعَذَابِ, as soon as they die, they start being in the worst kind of azab. This is in Surah Qafir. And then in that barzakh, Allah says, Al-nar yu'raduna alayhum. Fire will be presented to them. غَدُوًّا وَعَشِيًّا. day and night. So that means in barzakh you also have day and night. And in barzakh you are getting this worst kind of azab. And then says, this happens until taqum as-sa'ah, until the qiyamah comes for the Al-Umran, Al-Fir'aun. When that happens, Al-Fir'aun will receive ashaddul azab. So during the barzakh, they receive su'al azab. At the day of judgment, they receive ashaddul azab. In other words, barzakh is a prelude of what we get on the day of judgment. Now, we have nafs al-lawwama, nafs al-ammara, those two nafs that are, one is the instrument of shaitan, and the other one is the instrument that we can rely on to feel regret. And then we have that autopilot called nafs al-mulhama, the nafs that receives ilham. Now, if you use lawwama nafs to show remorse and regret against the actions or thoughts or sayings that nafs al-ammara made you do, you are getting closer to be forgiven. Then you use nafs al-mulhama to recognize what is right and what is wrong, what is taqwa and what is fujur. And when you stay away from fujur and embrace taqwa, then you are getting closer in the zip code of the area that belongs to nafs al-mutma'inna. Nafs al-mutma'inna. Nafs al-mutma'inna, Surah Al-Fajr, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam says this is about Imam al-Hussein. Irji'i ila rabbika radiyatan mardiyya. Not only Hussein is radi for what has happened to him, accepted everything Allah has brought, inni radi bi rida Allah, but also mardiyya. Mardiyya means that Allah is also radi of Hussein. And this nafs al-mutma'inna is the ultimate achievement of these four nafses. Now, each one of these nafses, they leave an imprint on the ruh. You can think of the ruh as a carbon. It used to be, I don't think they have it now. When you want to duplicate something, you write something on the first page. On the second page, between the second page and the first page of your notebook, you put a carbon paper, which will make an imprint on the second page. Now, the ruh gets an imprint from each nafs. Think of it that way. You listen to nafs al-ammara, your ruh will get an imprint from all the bad things. You listen to nafs al-mutma'inna, your ruh will get an imprint on it from all the good things. Now they are lowering us into the grave. Ruh, the original ruh, I said last week, comes from Allah. So it is pure and tahir. I gave you an example of like renting a brand new car. You have got it and you're supposed to bring it back without abusing it. You're allowed to use it, but you're not allowed to abuse it because it doesn't belong to you. It's a loan from God. Now that you have been lowered into the grave, what happens? Stay with that thought. Let's go back to a simple comparison. The comparison between this dunya and barzakh by sizes, by ability to feel, by ability to experience is exactly the same as the comparison between when we are in the wombs of our mothers and when we are in dunya. When you are in the womb of the mother, what is the size of your world compared to the size of the world that you're born into? That is same comparison between when we are getting lowered into the grave, leaving this dunya and entering barzakh. When we are in the womb of the mother, we do not even know that there are others beside you yourself. You're not even aware. You're not even aware that there is a mother. You think mother is part of you. You're not aware of the variety of different tastes that you're going to taste as soon as you come to dunya. In the womb of mother, you only taste salty blood. That's the only thing you're tasting. And your taste buds are not even evolved enough to even recognize that. You have not even feel or known something called the air. You don't even know that you have lungs because your lungs are collapsed inside the womb of your mother. They don't have any air molecule in them. They're collapsed. So you're not even aware that you have lungs. You don't even know what are these two things dangling on your sides and underneath you. You don't know these are called hands and feet. You don't even know what the purpose of these are. So right now in dunya, we don't even know what's the purpose of all the du'as and all the amal that we do. We do them, but then when we go to barzakh, then, oh my God, that du'a is giving me feet to walk in barzakh. That amal khair I did is giving me hands to reach out to other mu'mineen for help. It's exactly the same thing. That dua and that amal khair that I did, that amal that I did, is making me able to taste things that I did not even imagine can exist. If you go inside the womb and talk to the baby and say, baby, soon you're going to come out after 9 months. You're going to be able to walk on the beach, inside a forest, on the top of a mountain. You will be able to travel in the air with something called airplane. You will be able to eat solid and liquid food that tastes different than what you have been tasted. There is something called sweet, sour, bitter, all that things that you don't even understand when you are a baby inside the womb of your mother. You're going to develop something called teeth. With these teeth, you can break the food so you can have more pleasure. The baby will say, are you crazy? I'm fine. I need to be warm and I need to be fed, and I got both of them right now. That is exactly what non-believers will say to all the prophets that have come. We are fine. We have our joy, we have our power, we have our dunya, and who cares about what you're talking about? You might be crazy. How many prophet has been accused of being crazy? That's exactly the same thing. But when does our eyes open up? When they are lowering us into the grave. Exactly when the baby is born. Incidentally, the first act of baby in this world is crying. The first act of the baby is crying. Recognizing that he or she has entered to a world that she or he has no clue what this world is all about. Who is going to protect me? Who is going to make me warm again? Inside the body of the mother, the baby is warm. The baby does not feel cold. The baby does not feel heat. The baby is comfortable. But now, that baby is wandering. And as soon as it recognizes the gravity of how small the baby is compared to this world, unknown, starts crying. That's exactly what happens to us as we are being lowered in our grave. The ruh is getting separated from the body. For the first time, the ruh has the affinity to be free from the body and reach out to its origin. But then the imprints are on the ruh. And this is where all those imprints of bad a'mal are going to be transformed into different level of azab. Now, the opposite is also true. That the ruh, instead of crying as they are lowering them in the grave, is laughing and happy. Because as a mu'min ruh enters the grave, this is what happens. An entourage of 70,000 angels arrive to welcome him. They will gently introduce the ruh to Nakir and Munkar. And Nakir and Munkar, with utmost respect and comfort, they start asking those questions. And yes, we have to believe in the questions of the grave. That is part of our aqa'id. If we don't believe, then we are not a believer. That's part of our aqa'id. Shafa'a, azab, and sa'al, qabr are part of our aqa'id, our foundation of our belief. So Nakir and Munkar, they will accept the shuhada, they don't have Nakir and Munkar. There are no questions from shuhada. That's a different level. But Nakir, Munkar, they come and they ask those wonderful questions that the ruh that has been. Remember when we were all in persons, every few minutes somebody would say, Nara Haydari, and we all say, Ya Ali. Okay? That makes an imprint on everybody's ruh. And then that imprint will be the badge of honor in our ruh when Nakir and Munkar, they ask us these questions. It's like when the student is so ready for the exam, they look forward to the test exam time. When they studied hard and there is nothing that they don't know, they have worked very hard and they got all the questions, all the practice questions done. They're looking forward to be tested. They're going through that test like a breeze. They're looking forward. Ask me who is my imam. Ask me who is my prophet. Ask me who is my book. Ask me all these questions. I know the answer. And then Rasulullah says that those malaika that have come to visit him, to welcome him in Alam Barzakh, they will open up a dimension from his grave that he can see as far as his eyes can see. The horizon expanded. Then what happens? What a mu'min does in Barzakh? Evolution of his ma'rifah continues. Accumulation of ma'rifah in a level that is not possible in dunya. Like, for example, what can be taught to a student at the PhD level can never be taught at elementary or high school, because the student is not ready to receive this knowledge. A mu'min, even a mu'min, is not ready to receive the knowledge that awaits him to gain in Barzakh. It's like a high school student now has come to a PhD level student. One day Amir al-Mu'mineen is walking with one of his Sahaba, and the Sahaba says, Amir al-Mu'mineen came to Wadi al-Salam. Wadi al-Salam is a very famous graveyard near Najaf. Inshallah, Allah may present you with the opportunity to go there and see it for yourself. A lot of mu'mins are buried there. But we have a hadith that all the arwah of mu'minin, they gather in Wadi al-Salam, near the grave of Amir al-Mu'minin. So at the time when Amir al-Mu'minin was living in Kufa, he's walking by, he comes to Dar al-Salam, Wadi al-Salam, and in Wadi al-Salam, he stands and starts speaking. The Sahaba says, I saw that Ali is talking, but I could not hear his voice. I saw Ali is passionately giving a lecture, but I did not know who he's talking to. I stood up behind him. I got tired. I sat down. After I rested, I stood up again behind him. I got tired again. So it happens many times as the lecture of Amir al-Mu'mineen to people who this person cannot see took long. After Ali finished, the Sahaba says, Ya Ali, what I just witnessed? He said, if I can remove the curtain from your eyes so you can see that mu'mineen are gathering and they were discussing a point about Tawheed and they were having these beautiful discussions and I participate and led them to get that Tawheed point. Can you teach me the same thing? You are not ready. They were ready. Amir al-Mu'minin says. And remember, the size of Alam al-Barzakh and the wonders of Alam al-Barzakh is above and beyond greatness of this dunya. The same way in comparison to the Alam of the wound of the mother and this dunya. And this dunya, it's not just Earth, all the galaxies with it. And Rasulullah is Rasul Rahmatan lil Alameen, under Rabbal Alameen, Amir Kainat, Sayyidatul Nisa al Alameen. You have the family that rules all the alams. Grab onto them. Now, as they are bringing us, lowering us to the grave, this is the most important part of tonight's lecture. The prints on the ruh. Now imagine that your brain, just imagine the picture of the brain that you always have seen in your different classes, or picture of the brain. The front side of the brain is responsible for what separates us from the rest of the animals. That is where analytical reasoning is happening. That is where, it's called the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe of the brain is where you make all these wonderful memories, appreciation of arts and poetry, and everything that makes you a human is happening in this area. Now, this area has a storage room for all the memories that you have. Memories from childhood until now. Now, as soon as you're coming to the grave, each cells that has so many memories, all the memories are loaded up in the monitors of the ruh. And the malaik, whether they are the malaik for mu'min or the malaik of azab, they are seeing that monitor. So your memories, whether you like it or not, will be put on a monitor. I'm giving you all these words that can make the discussion easier. There is no monitor over there, you know. So now imagine that every cell, you are capable of restoring things, information that helps you when they are lowering you in the grave or hurts you. Let me give you another example. Let's say that these little cells of your brain are little containers, small containers, small vials, like those artificial tears. So how small they are, right? And in that, you have liquids that are extremely flammable, ready to catch fire, or even causing fire, like the gasoline, or you have a chemical that puts out the fire. Now you are going, as the ayah I recited for you, النار يعرضون. Nar is presented to us. Now those little vials, those little containers that you have, if in them you have stored a chemical that puts out the fire, no huzn, no worries, you can pass through. But if you have stored extremely explosive, flammable things in it, it will set you on fire. So that is what you can do in dunya. The more memories you make, this is why you see the repetitions of different numbers. We said that in this a'mal, you have to say Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah 70 times. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen 120 times. Assalamu alayka ya Sahib al-Zaman this many times. Assalamu alayka ya Fatima al-Zahra this many times. This is the part that you are making memories in yourselves, and just their names will put out the fire. So you have a choice. Filling out these memory cells, which makes an imprint on your ruh, with Asma al-Husna, ad'uni baha, astajib lakum, Quran says, and Asma al-Husna, Imam al-Baqir says, wa nahnu Asma al-Husna. You have a choice to fill up these memory cells with the name of Asma al-Husna, that nar is haram to them. One day somebody came to Ma'mun, said, guess what? I have discovered the hairs of Rasulullah, and I want a reward. Ma'mun says, I will reward you, but how are you going to prove this is the hair? He said, according to my research, this is the hair of Rasulullah. Ma'mun says, no, I have a better way. He asked Imam Rida to come, and Imam Rida came. And Imam Rida looked at those and picked up 5 threads of hair and says, these belong to Rasulullah, the rest of them are not. Ma'mun said, Yabna Rasulullah, you are the son of Rasulullah, we believe you. But can you prove, and remember 5, that's another number. Can you prove, what is the proof that these 5, they belong to Rasulullah? I said, bring the fire. Brought the fire. They set the fire up in front of Ma'mun and in front of the audience. Imam put all the other hairs in the fire. They burned in a matter of seconds. Then Imam picked up those 5 threads of hair that he said these belong to Rasulullah and put them in the fire. Not only they did not fire, not only they did not catch fire, they put the fire out. Now you have a choice. Make more imprint, memory cells with Asma al-Husna. So when they lower us in the grave, these imprints on our ruh will come and help you to put out the fire, or you put in shahawati's memories that are explosive, catch fire and put you in the fire, which is directed to you by nafs al-ammar. Choice is clear. وَهَدَيْنَاهُمْ نَجْدَيْنِ. We have given you choices, wrong and right. وَهَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلِ. We have given you the sabil. أَمَّا شَاكِرًا أَمَّا كَفُورًا. You can choose, but remember, the power of choice ends the minute they lower us in the grave. Dunya is where you have the power of choosing. But you can choose for your own good, or you can choose for your own destruction. And remember, barzakh is a long, long, long time. Rasulullah says, Balki barzakh is like when you wake up and you feel like you were in a dream. When you are dead, you think dunya was your dream and you just woke up. In fact, in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the sleeping and the dreaming an example of how maut is, how death is. It says, when you sleep, we take your ruh from you, but at the time that you're supposed to wake up, we return the ruh to you. But in some cases, we'll keep the ruh. Then it is death if we keep it. In some cases, they give it us. We have another day. Go wake up and choose khair over shar. Or vice versa. And how sometimes in your dream you do things, your capability is way more than when you're awake. Because in your dream, your ruh can go places. Let's say you see a dream that you are in Karbala. And you see a dream that you're lifting a car. Or you have given all the knowledge. In real day, you can't do that. It proves to you that a ruh without the body is capable of doing all of that you saw in your dreams. That is a little bit of a hint to you tonight that how great barzakh compared to dunya is. Your ruh can be in Wadi al-Salam. Your body could be buried in Orange County. Your ruh can be meeting with Salman Farsi and learning about Tawheed. Or your ruh is burning on those imprints, those flammable things that you have brought with you to barzakh. Just the name of Ahl al-Bayt, if it is stored in your memories. How important was it when our grandmothers and our grandfathers start teaching us the 14 names? You remember? Come on, tell us. They used to give you a sweet or a reward when you be able to name all the Masooms. How shameful would that be if some of our children right now, they don't even know the names of Ahl al-Bayt? Are we doing them a favor? We are pushing them to azab. At least let them know the names. And then if you can add on to it, for each name, a little bit of depth. What does Ali means? What does Muhammad means? What does Zainab means? What does Kulthum means? And nothing about these names are coincidence. When you teach them, it has a powerful effect on the ruh. It will stay with them. And nafs mulhama will tell them, wow, this information is true. They don't need validations from outside. They get it from nafs mulhama. فَأَلْهَمُهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. You present them with the knowledge. The validation comes from inside. And ya hasrata, when the validation comes from nafs al-ammarat bis-su'. And in that dunya, you don't have the capability of fooling yourself, of lying to yourself. All your a'mal will be up on the monitor. And they will jump out of the monitor and grab you. I was giving an example a few weeks ago to another audience. Let's say that you look at something that is haram for you to look at. Or someone. Two things will grab you in barzakh. Your own eyes. We're just talking about the look. Forget about touching and other things. Your own eyes. Why did you use me in haram way? The eyes will burn you. Your own eyes. The other one is the subject of your glance. You glance at someone in a haram way. Even if that person or that thing that you look at and you were not supposed to, you will say, this is how you in dunya you justify. Why? They are not a believer, so they don't care if I look. They are dressed the way that they want me to look at them. That's why I look. So then that person will also grab you. Say, I did not know Fatima al-Zahra. That's why I dressed that way. But you knew who Fatima is, but you still use your eyes in the path that Fatima disapproves. Every action is going to be presented back to you, and you don't have any way to sugarcoat it, to ignore it, to lie to yourself. You can't. The capability is only in dunya for that stuff, not in barzakh. Barzakh is alam of haqiq, haqiqatul a'mal, haqiqatul niyat, haqiqatul afkar. They will come out. You will come to a beautiful place and say, this belongs to you. Say, what did I do? Say, remember, you wanted to help some orphans. You wanted to build some madrasa. You wanted to help to the masjid. But I didn't have the money. I said, yes, but your niyyah was sincere. This is the reward for your niyyah. We are very lucky that they don't judge us based on our niyyat shar. They only judge us based on our a'mal shar. That is another rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So nafses are machinery to guide us. Nafs al-ammara guide us toward nar. The other nafses can help us to come to ayyuhatul nafs al-mutma'in. So when they lower us in the grave, we are looking forward to it. Not يَذْرَبُونَ وُجُوهَهُمْ وَقَادِهُمْ. Quran says, Malaik al-Azab, they start hitting the sinners in the face and their back as soon as the ruh leaves the body. This is Quran. It's not any hadith or rawai. It's Quran. So when you make commitment to remember and fill up the memories in this ruh about Ahl al-Bayt, then you have with you a tool that can put out the fire. Now it's up to you. Remember, Faza'il Ahl al-Bayt. I always say that there are three kind of people among us. They are people who believe in Ali and Vilayat Amir al-Mu'mineen and Ahl al-Bayt, or the people who believe in their enemies, or the spectrum between these two groups, the undecided, or the people who sometimes are there, sometimes are there. So there are two finite points and the rest in between. And you can choose to be on which side. You can choose to remember Fada'il and Masa'ib Ahl al-Bayt. If you think about it, Masa'ib that we go over about Karbala or about other shahadat, we know all of them. But every year we go through them to refresh and restore more memories. We will never forget the last walk that Hussein and Zainab they did together. We will never forget what Zainab witnessed from Tall Zainabiyya. We will never forget what Sakina experienced. We will never forget how they murdered Ali Asghar, how they butchered Ali Akbar. Why? Because it benefits us. It is for you to make those memories. Each and every one of those memories is like a fire truck that can put the fire out. Each one of them. Now it is entirely up to us to give in to Nafs al-Ammara or take control over Nafs al-Ammara before it is too late. We can and we must. Why? Because Quran says, وَمِنْ وَرَائِهُمْ بَرْزَخْ إِلَى يَوْمِ يَبْعَثُونَ. Behind this dunya, right after this dunya, this is Quran, Surah Mu'mineen. Barzakh starts. How long is the Barzakh? Until the day we are mab'athun. We are coming back, resurrected. Remember, in every majlis that you have heard from me, at the end I said, Ya Allah, make all of us live, die, and resurrect with Hubb al-Zahra and her children. This is the signature of every majlis I have said. Why? Because of this ayah. Because I want all of us to have Hubb al-Zahra and her children in this dunya, and when they are lower us in the grave, during the barzakh, and day of resurrection. Because when we have them, fear not. Fear not. Remember when Amir al-Mu'mineen lowered the body of Salman in the grave. He put his hand on the walls of Salman graves. Then he put his face at the bottom part of Salman graves on the soul. And he says, Ya Turab, Abu Turab is telling you to be comforting to Salman. And if we are going to Turab, we need to grab Abu Turab for Shafa. This is the beginning of the discussion for other alams and how the ruh and nafs, they meet again in barzakh, and how the ruh can elevate into higher level. Inshallah, that is coming. But let me wrap up tonight with that car story. Told you that the ruh is like you rent a car. And remember, at the point of checking out your car, they will ask you, would you like to buy insurance? Or you have your own insurance? And oh, God forbid, if you don't have insurance and something happens to that car. Not only they charge you for every part of that car, they overcharge you. You may even go bankrupt. And that is why Imam al-Sadiq says that they are not from us if they don't believe in the questions that happens in the grave, if they don't believe in azab of qabr or barzakh, and if they don't believe, what is the last one? If they don't believe in our shafa. Now you have had or heard people saying that they rented a car and they had an accident, they totaled the car, but they walk away without any problem. Why? Because they had such a nice
fully loaded insurance coverage. That coverage covered all the things that happened in that accident. Assalamu alaikum, adkhulul jannah, no problem. You have a good insurance. That insurance is shafa. Aslan, the word kasa means coverage. Kasa means a cover. Hadith kasa that we recite all the time when we are happy is to make sure we have insurance policy for that happiness. Haven't you noticed? In every wedding we recite Hadith Kasa. Why? Because Hadith Kasa is an insurance policy. The word Kasa is coverage. Every insurance contract, it says this is a coverage. Rasulullah comes to Zahra, says that I feel weakness in my body. Body of Rasulullah never feels weakness. What is that Rasulullah is saying? Rasulullah is saying that I look at this ummah and I feel like the body of Risala is weakened if I leave it to this ummah, Ya Zahra. Zahra says, fear not, father. I seek shelter of my Rabb for you. Zahra saying to Rasulullah that. Then Rasulullah says, Atini bi kasa yaman. Bring me the kasa of Ahl Yameen. Remember, Quran has Ahl Yameen and Ahl Shamal. Musa saw the fire from Wadi al-Amin. That is that Amin comes from. That is that Yameen comes from. Ya Zahra, you give to my Risala that the coverage that Ahl al-Yameen will remain on this earth. And Zahra brings her coverage. And when Rasulullah is wrapped by this insurance policy that Zahra says, fear not, father. No matter how much dhulm they will do to me and to my children, we make sure that Tawheed will remain, even if they kill us. That is the insurance policy that Zahra gave to all of us. When Rasulullah is wrapped under Zahra's coverage, يَتَلَعْلَعْلُ, the Wajh Rasulullah starts shining كَبَدْرًا, and like a moon in tamamihi wa kamalihi. The night that the moon is super moon. But Quran and Ahadith, they use Rasul as an example of Shams and Amir al-Mu'mineen as Ghamar. So how come in Hadith Kasa, Zahra is saying that Rasulullah, she should have said, Rasulullah looks like Shams, because Shams wal-Duhaha wal-Qamara idha talaha is about Rasulullah, when Rasulullah comes and after him Amir al-Mu'mineen comes. So she should have used the Shams, but she used, and this is Zahra Kalam Ma'soom, she uses moon. Why? Because when Zahra comes in the play, Zahra connects Risala to Imam. Now the Noor of Shams is coming from the Noor of the Imams that are all related to Zahra. The Shams is now under the coverage of Zahra, is transformed to moon. And when the moon shines, Badran fi laylati, the moon in the night that is in its complete tamaman and its imperfection, kamal. So when Risala assumes the Noor of Risala, switches from Shams to Qamar, the Noor comes to us in its perfection and in completion. Al-Yawm akmaltu lakum dinakum wa raditu lakum al-Islam dina wa atamtu alaykum ni'mati. That's why Fatima uses these two words, tamam and kamal, because tamam ni'mah And Kamal al-Din happens when Nur al-Risala reflects from Nur of Imam. And that coverage from that moment has been available for people to come and take this coverage as their insurance policy. So when they lower our ruh, you will say to Nakir and Munkar, I did abuse my ruh. I have done wrong. But I have this insurance policy called Hubb al-Zahra. And بحق الحب الزهراء, the lowering of our bodies in the grave will be the lowering of the body of mu'min. So again, I reach out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this dua for all of us. Ya Allah, make us all live, die, and resurrect with Hubb al-Zahra. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. توجه الزيارة إن شاء الله.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا حاكم يوم الدين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا أبا محمد يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبو الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين والسيدة زينب وأم كلثوم وسكينة. السلام عليك يا مولاي علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا محمد بن علي الباقر، السلام عليك يا مولاي جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا باب الحوائج يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا غريب الغرباء يا علي بن موسى الرضا وأختك فاطمة معصومة، السلام عليك يا مولاي محمد بن علي التقي الجواد، السلام عليك يا مولاي علي بن محمد الحادي النقي، السلام عليك يا مولاي علي بن محمد الحادي النقي، السلام عليك يا مولاي حسن بن علي الزكي العسكري، السلام عليك يا سيدنا يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان وشر الشيطان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وزهورك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكن أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Brothers and sisters, let's recite this ayah karima for all of the mu'mineen around the world who are in need of our du'as, who are under any sort of difficulty, for all the mu'mineen who are sick, especially for Razi uncle, and also for the Zuhur of Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء، 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 برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رحم الله من قرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. أحسنت.
تقبل الله جميعا.
Women and women, inshallah, our next program will be on Thursday with Wilada's celebration of Prophet Muhammad, Imam Jafar Sadiq and Bibi Kulthum. Inshallah, we'll start at 8 o'clock Thursday night. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.